Okay, here we go. Let's see what happens today. All right, this is session 42. All right, Jackie Robinson, Mariana Rivera. All right, Mariana Rivera, the last person to wear number 42. Okay, you needed to know that. All right then, this is session 42. We're still in chapter 6, the lessons of love. And this will be section 5. All right, section 5. The lessons of the Holy Spirit. All right. Now, the lessons of the Holy Spirit are going to be corrections of what the ego thought system tells us. The lessons, so to speak, that the ego gives us to learn. And for those of you who are brought up in Christian traditions, the New Testament is filled with parables, stories that Jesus was purported to have told, and that would, demonstrate his point, or would make his point. Okay? And in this book, he often does that. He uses metaphors. And you'll see he speaks to us like we're little children. Okay? And it's just part of the gentle nature of the Course and the fact that it meets us where we are. Okay? So, let us begin. And with the lessons of the Holy Spirit, I'm going to break them up. I'm going to devote a session to each lesson instead of making one long hour and a half, hour 45-minute session. All right? We'll make them shorter if I can stop the prelude here. Okay, the lessons of the Holy Spirit. Like any good teacher, the Holy Spirit knows more than you do now, but he teaches only to make you equal with him. You had already taught yourself wrongly, having believed what was not true. You did not believe in your own perfection. Would God teach you that you had made a split mind when he knows your mind only as whole? What God does know is that his communication channels are not open to him, so that he cannot impart his joy and know his children are wholly joyous. Giving his joy is an ongoing process, not in time, but in eternity. God's extending outward, though not his completeness, is blocked when the sonship does not communicate with him as one. So he thought, my children sleep and must be awakened. All right? Once again, this is Jesus talking in that, like a little parable. All right? So, and he's telling us that no one is above anybody. All right? There is no order of difficulty in miracles, right? And that, I believe that's the first line in the book, but it's demonstrated over and over again, all right? So he says, the Holy Spirit knows more than you do now, right? But he teaches only to make you equal with him, all right? To wake us up, to have the same realizations that the Holy Spirit has. And the Holy Spirit is basically our memory of who we are, okay? And so there's that equality Everyone is equal. All right? The mind is one. There's no one better, no one special. Right? Jesus over and over again will tell you he's not special. He's just, at this point, he's like one step ahead. That's all. Okay? He says why the Holy Spirit needs to teach us, so to speak, is because you already taught yourself incorrectly. Right? You taught yourself that you're not perfection. You don't believe in your own perfection. All right? Just try to catch that immediate response. All right? When in this book, Jesus reminds you that you are perfect. All right? Your spirit is perfect. Now he'll use that phrase, not in time, but in eternity. All right? So you can see how in time, where we believe we are, in time and space, there's the expression, nobody's perfect. All right? And you know, as you become more aware and as you age, the body's not perfect. You know, we have conversations, we do whatever, you do a job, right? Sometimes you make mistakes, so you're not perfect. All right? In time, we're not perfect, but in eternity, you are perfect. You are a reflection of the perfect source of all. You're the reflection of God. I just noticed, you know, your response to that, you know. So you did not believe in your own perfection. All right. So he says, would God teach you that you have a split mind when he knows your mind only as whole? All right. And then he gets into metaphor. He says, what God does know is that his communication channels are not open to him. All right? And so he cannot impart his joy and know that his children are wholly joyous. All right? He's talking to us like we're little kids, but on the spiritual evolution scale, we're basically in kindergarten. So, so he says, he reminds us that God extending himself, all right, or the source of all things extending itself, all right, is a continuous process. All right? It's always happening. Right? But what happens is that when we believe we're separated from that, it's as if the communication channel has been blocked. All right? It's as if God is sending out this message of pure love and inclusion and happiness and joy over the radio waves. And here we are. There's so many things that cause static, right? That the communication is interrupted, it's blocked. You don't hear it correctly. All right? So that's what happens. Okay? So the sonship does not communicate with him as one. And so he thought, my children sleep and must be awakened. That's a very gentle and beautiful way of saying why this, all of a sudden, this course came into being, all right? Or why all of a sudden there's a special, let me erase that word, a unique seeming unique person that pops up with wonderfully spiritually advanced news for all of us, right? But he's going to stay here with this dream metaphor. So in paragraph 2, this will demonstrate the gentleness of the Course process. It says, how can you wake children in a more kindly way than by a gentle voice that will not frighten them, but will merely remind them that the night is over and the light has come? You do not inform them that the nightmares that frighten them so badly are not real, because children believe in magic. You merely reassure them that they are safe now. Then you train them to recognize the difference between sleeping and waking, so they will understand they need not be afraid of dreams. And so when bad dreams come, they will themselves call on the light to dispel them. Okay? That's the process of the Course. All right? Jesus will tell us that we are at home in God, dreaming of exile. All right? So that dream of exile is nightmarish. All right? And this is our waking dream, our waking life. All right? And the Course is one way of awakening from that dream. All right? That's one reason why the Course will tell you that we all have the same need. The basic need is to awaken from this dream. All right? So that's a good way to establish commonality on the first rung of the ladder, as Ken would say. That we all have the same need. No matter how much of a nut I am or you are, people are acting out, and this world seems to be crazier than ever, but read some history and you'll see it's always been tutto bazzo, as they say, right? And this is a way of establishing a little commonality, all right? Everyone has the same need to awaken from this dream, and everyone is a little bazzo, little bots during their life, okay? And this is a very gentle Course, all right? And it reminds me of, friends who came back from the Vietnam era, and now, as the wars continue, there are more and more men and women experiencing PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. All right? And some of that involves dreaming, or even almost hallucinating and fantasizing, getting thrown back into the memories. Right? And one way that, and just as an aside, for a Vietnam veteran, I don't think PTSD had come into vogue, so to speak, or prominence at that time, and especially, and definitely not World War II and Korean conflict. All right, they would refer to, we would hear my parents refer to men with shell shock, right, and things of that nature. But I digress. And one way they would deal with a person who's having the nightmares is to train them, as Jesus says, to tell the difference between what they're seeing in their REM sleep or in their hallucination, and their waking life. And one of the things that was very easy would be to remind the person, or have the person remind himself, ask himself, what day is it? What's today's date? Right? Things like that. Little things that bring them right back into the present. Okay. As a massage therapist, there was a class that would help us with people who have been suffering from some kind of trauma, be it war or sexual abuse, or many other abuses, physical abuse, cult abuse, things like that. And one of the things we were told to do was bring that person right back into the present moment, and to have them train themselves to be able to do that. Right? Just remind yourself. We would say, "What's today? What year is it?" That was always a good one. Right? What country are you in? All right? Now I'm starting to remember instances of using that, but. All right. So then you train them to recognize the difference between sleeping and waking. So they will understand they need not be afraid of dreams. And so when bad dreams come, they will themselves call on the light to dispel them. Okay? So with the Course, we train ourselves. That's what the workbook is for. The 365 lessons, we train ourselves so that when we're totally identified with the ego, where we're feeling attacked, or we're attacking, or we have this self-righteous anger, or we're in tremendous fear, right? We can realize that that's the nightmare of the ego. That's the dream of the ego. And we can call on the light to dispel the dream. All right? We go to our higher selves, we go to our spiritual mind, we go to the right mind, as we say in the Course. All right? We ask Jesus, help me. All right? We go to the Holy Spirit, sit in that quiet center, and ask to be helped with our perceptions. And that's the practice of the Course. Right? Paragraph 3, a wise teacher teaches through approach, not avoidance. He does not emphasize what you must avoid in order to escape harm, but what you need to learn to have joy. Consider the fear and confusion a child would experience if he were told, "Do not do this because it will hurt you and make you unsafe. But if you do that instead, you will escape from harm and be safe, and then you will not be afraid." It is surely better to use only 3 words. Do only that. This simple statement is perfectly clear, easily understood, and very easily remembered. All right? When that happens, do this. You'll feel better. The Holy Spirit never itemizes error, paragraph 4, never itemizes errors, because he does not frighten children. And those who lack wisdom are children. Yet he always answers their call, and his dependability makes them more certain. Children do confuse fantasy and reality, and they are frightened because they do not recognize the difference. The Holy Spirit makes no distinction among dreams. He merely shines them away. His light is always the call to awaken, whatever you have been dreaming. Nothing lasting lies in dreams, and the Holy Spirit, shining the light from God himself, speaks only for what lasts forever. And he says, those who have not attained wisdom are children. Right? Those who lack wisdom are children. All right? So that's why he speaks to us as children. We have not awakened to the point of wisdom. All right? So, and he says, look, he understands children don't understand the difference between fantasy and reality. And it's frightening. Right? Then he says, the Holy Spirit makes no distinction among dreams, no order of difficulty in miracles, no order of difficulty in dreams. Right? One is not worse than the other. They're all coming from the same belief. I have separated from love. One problem, one solution. May look different. You know, the 10,000 things, as the Chinese say. All right, so there's 10,000 different dreams. One may look worse than the other, but they come from the same source. All right? The Holy Spirit doesn't put an order of difficulty on them. No distinction. All right? Holy Spirit can shine away any dream. All right? All we need to do is practice contacting the memory of who we are, contacting your higher self, right? Your spiritual mind. All right? Nothing lasting lies in dreams. All right? Now think about that if we're going to expand from sleeping dreams to the waking dream in which we live. All right? He says nothing lasting lies in dreams. There's nothing lasting in this world of time and space. Nothing lasts forever. Okay? And the Holy Spirit, shining with the light from God Himself, speaks only for what lasts forever. And what lasts forever is your existence in the oneness, your existence in heaven, so to speak. All right? Your connection to your source. All right? That's what lasts forever. All right? And the joy that comes with it lasts forever. All right? So let's go to the first lesson. All right? And let's recall what Jesus just said should be what you tell children, the instructions you give children. Is do only that. All right? Okay. So the first lesson is to have all, give all to all. All right? To have, give all to all. The ego's teaching, which is the reverse, is to have something, you have to go get it. Right? So having is getting. To have, get everything you can from everybody. Right? There's not enough. The scarcity. I'm lacking something. Go get it. All right? But the Holy Spirit is saying to feel that abundance, to have, give all to all. All right? So you see, he's not talking about things in form. All right? He's talking about the awareness. All right? Be willing to see the innocence of the other. That's giving them all. That's giving them everything they need. And in return, you have it. Because it's an unlimited supply, and it's for everyone, and minds are connected. Okay, to have, give all to all. Paragraph 1. When your body and your ego and your dreams are gone, you will know that you will last forever. Perhaps you think this is accomplished through death. But nothing is accomplished through death, because death is nothing. Everything is accomplished through life, and life is of the mind and in the mind. The body neither lives nor dies, because it cannot contain you, who are life. If we share the same mind, you can overcome death, because I did. Death is an attempt to resolve conflict by not deciding at all. Like any other impossible solution, the ego attempts. It will not work. All right? So death is an attempt to resolve conflict. All right? And my original conflict is with God. All right? And I, deep down inside, think he's waiting to kill me, or waiting for me to die, or right? And sometimes in our lives, the conflict, there's many conflicts. And sometimes death is seen as a way out. Okay? So he says death doesn't do anything, all right? Because it is nothing. Nothing is ever accomplished through death. Okay? And believe me, the Course does not sit in judgment on those who commit suicide. All right? There's an understanding of, I would say, of process. Okay? There are people to whom their circumstances are so dire, so painful, physically, emotionally, psychologically, that there doesn't seem to be a way out. Okay? But the act itself sometimes projects guilt onto others. All right? But we don't need to get into a discussion of suicide. Right? My firm belief is that you just pop up somewhere with the same basic conflicts, and you get a chance to work it out. Okay? Sooner or later you will see differently. Sooner or later you will ask, help me to see this differently. All right? Because the nightmare doesn't go on forever. And Jesus will constantly remind us that you're only reviewing things. He says, actually, you're at home, reviewing what has gone by. Right? He'll say it another way once again, you're at home in God, dreaming of exile. Right? So you're actually at home already. You just don't realize it. So we're in the act of realizing. Okay? So death is an attempt to resolve conflict by not deciding at all. Like any other solution, the impossible solution the ego attempts, it will not work. Okay? Paragraph 2, God did not make the body because it's destructible and therefore not of the kingdom. The body is the symbol of what you think you are. It is clearly a separation device and therefore does not exist. The Holy Spirit, as always, takes what you have made and translates it into a learning device. Again, as always, he reinterprets what the ego uses as an argument for separation into a demonstration against it. If the mind can heal the body, but the body cannot heal the mind, then the mind must be stronger than the body. Every miracle demonstrates this. Okay? That's kind of clear. God did not make the body because it's destructible. It fades away. All right? Therefore, it's not of the kingdom. All right? And then he tells us pretty succinctly, the body is the symbol of what you think you are. All right? You are this separate entity, all right, with this seemingly solid form. All right? And it's clearly a separation device. I mean, clearly. My body is clearly separate from yours. All right? Don't get in my space. Right? And those bodies, even though they'll feign collectivity or joining, they'll join into groups. But there's always an outsider. There's always someone they're keeping out. There's always someone separate from the group. You know, I have a group that believes that eating herring will bring you good luck, and so we meet every Friday to eat herring. That's so ridiculous, but you know, well, you don't like fish, well then you're out. You're separate. You're separate from us. You're not us. All right? And so on down the road. I mean, you know, I'm being facetious, of course, but it's a weak attempt at humor, but you see the point. The body is used as a device for separation. All right? Colors, nationalities, languages. I mean, it goes on and on. So will I if I don't stop myself. So the body is the symbol of what you think you are. It is clearly a separation device. And therefore, it does not exist. Okay? Because it's clearly being used for separation, which does not exist. So the body does not exist. You keep those thoughts in the back of your mind, all right? Be normal, walk through your life normally, all right? We're trying to learn this course. You don't jump ahead, all right? And say, well, my body's not real, you know? Then you do something silly, you know, ignoring traffic devices or anything, any kind of a safety device, all right? You don't take care of yourself, you don't brush your teeth, you don't. Come on, be normal, all right? But the Holy Spirit takes what you have made and translates it into a learning device, all right? And as always, he reinterprets what the ego uses as an argument for separation into a demonstration against it, all right? The body can be used for communication, communication of the light, so to speak. Just in our daily routines, our daily walkabout. All right? You can become a bearer of light. All right? And just remember to check in, you know, with Jesus and say, help me to see correctly. All right? So you don't go around indiscriminately correcting people. Right? There's always the, as Jesus would put it, the misguided miracle impulse. Okay? And he says, beware of your good intentions, they're not enough. Right? We have to connect with that stately calm within, all right, and ask to be guided. So, paragraph 3. I have said that the Holy Spirit is the motivation for miracles. He always tells you that only the mind is real, because only the mind can be shared. The body is separate and therefore cannot be part of you. To be of one mind is meaningful, but to be of one body is meaningless. By the laws of mind, then, the body is meaningless. Right? The only thing that has meaning is the mind. Right? The whole, complete mind. Right? Paragraph 4. To the Holy Spirit, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. This is familiar enough to you by now, but it has not yet become believable. Therefore, you do not understand it and cannot use it. We have too much to accomplish on behalf of the kingdom to let this crucial concept slip away. It is a real foundation stone of the thought system I teach and want you to teach. You cannot perform miracles without believing it, because it is a belief in perfect equality. Only one equal gift can be offered to the equal sons of God, and that is full appreciation. Nothing more, nothing less. Without a range, order of difficulty is meaningless, and there must be no range in what you offer to your brother. Okay? It's just another way of saying give all. Offer everything to your brother. Right? There is no order of difficulty. One thing is not worse than the other. One person in eternity, in reality, is not worse than the other. Okay? And so everyone needs the same thing. There's not a range of innocence, all right, that we extend. All right? When we are willing to become a channel, when we're willing to be guided, when we're willing to see the other innocently, we can see their innocence. All right? We are offering everything. All right? And he says that's what you have to realize. Right? There's no order of difficulty. There's no range of innocence. Right? There's no highs and lows. Right? Whether it's the baby crying, whether there's a child lost in the department store or the supermarket, all right? Or whether there's a man on the street talking to himself and acting out. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. One thing is not worse than the other. They're all coming from the same mistake, a belief in separation from love. So we, as waking people, what we offer is love. Right? I ask Jesus, help me to see correctly, and that opens the channel for the flow of communication. It doesn't mean that whatever the actions are going to stop. Right? It just means that that extension of love is entering the mind, right? And being reinforced. Right? I used to like to think it's in the bank for them. Okay? And if we need a word, if we need to say something, we'll have it. Or if we need to take an action, we'll be guided. Right? But you'll be motivated only by love. Right? So, one equal gift can be offered to the equal Son of God. Right? And that gift is full appreciation. In other words, I'm willing to see the light in you. All right? I'm willing to remember that you are a part of the one mind of God. All right? That's what we give. That's giving all to all. All right? And the first part of that lesson is to have. So to have the awareness of who you are is be willing to see the truth, the light in the other. Okay? So without a range, order of difficulty is meaningless, and there must be no range in what you offer your brother. All right? You don't just give a little. So paragraph 5. The Holy Spirit, who leads to God, translates communication into being, just as he ultimately translates perception into knowledge. You do not lose what you communicate. The ego uses the body for attack, for pleasure, and for pride. The insanity of this perception makes it a fearful one indeed. The Holy Spirit sees the body only as a means of communication. And because communication is sharing, it becomes communion. Perhaps you think that fear as well as love can be communicated and therefore can be shared. Yet this is not so real as it may appear. Those who communicate fear are promoting attack. An attack always breaks communication, making it impossible. Egos do join together in temporary allegiance, but always for what each one can get separately. The Holy Spirit communicates only what each one can give to all. He never takes anything back because he wants you to keep it. Therefore, his teaching begins with the lesson to have, give all to all. Okay? So, he says egos do join together temporarily in a temporary allegiance, right? I mean, just think about it. Contracts, alliances between countries, backroom agreements, the wink and the nod. People join together to see what they can get separately. All right? So, but the Holy Spirit communicates only what each one can give to all. The Holy Spirit reminds us of who we are, and we extend that. The Holy Spirit communicates only what each one can give to all. So we can extend that memory of who the other is. All right? And that's giving everything to everyone. And it reinforces it in us, so we have it. He says you can't lose what you communicate. All right? I communicate in some way. I communicate to you, you are a child of God. Right? You are not a body. You are free. Right? You are just the way you were created. A pure, beautiful, joyous thought. Right? That's who you are. And he says you don't lose that by communicating that. That doesn't diminish. If anything, it reinforces. It reinforces that in my mind. Okay? So, and he never takes anything back. He wants you to keep it. Therefore, his teaching begins with the lesson, to give all to all. Paragraph 6. This is a very preliminary step, and the only one you must take for yourself. It is not even necessary that you complete the step yourself, but it is necessary that you turn in that direction. Having chosen to go that way, you place yourself in charge of the journey, where you and only you must remain. This step may appear to exacerbate conflict rather than resolve it, because it is the beginning step in reversing your perception and turning it right side up. This conflicts with the upside down perception you have not yet abandoned, or the change in direction would not have been necessary. Some remain at this step for a long time, experiencing very acute conflict. At this point, they may try to accept the conflict, rather than take the next step toward its resolution. Having taken the first step, however, they will be helped. Once they have chosen what they cannot complete alone, they are no longer alone. Okay? So he's trying to make it really easy for us. Right? He says it's a preliminary step, and it's the only step that you have to take by yourself. And what is that step really? Just be willing. Be willing to see the innocence in the other. Be willing to have your perception changed. Right? Be willing to have those judgments changed. Right? Just turn in that direction. Right? And having chosen to go that way, you place yourself in charge of the journey, where you and only you must remain. So you realize that you're in charge. You make the decision. I'm willing. Right? I'm open to it. Help me out here. All right? So it's the beginning step. Right? And it may seem to exacerbate conflict rather than resolve it. What are you talking about? Give all to all. But it's only because our thinking is upside down. All right? As we said in the beginning, the ego's thinking is to have anything, go get it. You have to get it. To have all, get all. Right? It begins the moment you're conceived. Right? You have to, or at least when you're born, really. You have to go get what you need. All right? And if you don't get it, you cry. All right? And you make life miserable for those around you until they give you what you need. All right? So, that's the upside down thinking. In order to get anything, I have to go get it. Right, where Jesus is telling us, you're going to soon come to learn that you have everything. Right? And the way to remind yourself of that, the way to remember that, is to first be willing to see that concept in the other, to see the innocence of the other, right? To begin to see the light in the other. And that's the beginning. And he says, some may stay at this step for a long time, experiencing very acute conflict. How can I, sometimes I could see him or see her as, I can ask to see them innocent, but then they do that again and this and that, and I can't take it anymore. And then you start going down the rabbit hole, where the ego will whisper in the ear, well, yeah, you've been studying this for a long time. You consider yourself a spiritual person, but look Look at you, you go right back to it, you know. Just be willing to turn in the other direction. Be willing to just say, okay, help me to see correctly. All right? Because he says, having taken the first step, you will be helped. All right? You will be. All right? Just, I would recommend you don't have an agenda. You don't have a list of outcomes. All right? Just be willing to have your perception changed. All right? I like to use the phrase, what does love look like in this situation? Okay? And just be willing to see what it looks like. And don't have a preconceived notion of what it's supposed to look like. Just allow it to unfold. Allow it to rise up in your mind. All right? Once they've taken the first step, they will be helped. Once they have chosen what they cannot complete alone, they are no longer alone. All right? So once you have chosen, help me to see this correctly. Right? There must be a better way. Help me. You're not alone. All right? In that moment, because in the ego you're alone. You always feel alone. All right? No matter how many friends you got. All right? I used to tell my friend Emily, I could feel alone in Yankee Stadium. All right? The old Yankee Stadium when there was a lot more people. But you could feel alone in a crowd. But he says, once you turn in that direction, once you turn to the right mind, right? Once you're reaching out for the help, right, in the forms of Jesus or Holy Spirit, you're not alone anymore. Once they have chosen what they cannot complete alone, you're no longer alone. He says this in a couple of places. You can't do it by yourself. All right? The ego's always a little too tricky. All right? So once you've chosen, you're not alone. All right? And the idea is to be willing to give all to all. All right? And sometimes I like to use the idea of happiness. Have people being happy. All right? Or my wonderful example on the path, my wonderful wife Jean, she says, be willing to see what God has in store for everyone. All right? And hope that dawns on their mind too. Right? That the will of God dawns on their mind. And I like to use that word happiness. Be willing that the other person be happy. I'm okay that they're happy. Because think of it, if they were happy, they wouldn't be breaking your horns. All right? They wouldn't. If they were completely happy, they wouldn't be acting out. All right? So give them their happiness, and it will reinforce yours. All right? Okay. And we'll see you for the next lesson, which will be to have peace, teach peace, to learn it. Okay? All right. So be happy and give it away. Okay? Love you.